15 billion miles from where you are sitting right now, a machine older than disco is sending Earth a signal scientists cannot explain. And the strangest part is not the signal itself. It is how carefully NASA is choosing its words when they talk about it. Voyager 1 was never supposed to still be alive. It was built in 1977 by engineers using less computing power than the device currently in your pocket, launched on what was meant to be a 4-year tour of the outer planets, a quick photographic flyby of Jupiter and Saturn before fading into irrelevance. Nobody designing it imagined it would still be transmitting in 2026. Nobody imagined it would travel so far past the edge of the solar system that sunlight itself becomes a rumor, that the sun shrinks to a point of light indistinguishable from any other star, that the spacecraft would cross into a region of space no human instrument had ever physically touched. And yet, here it is, still alive, still listening, still talking to us across a gap so vast that its messages take over 23 hours to arrive, meaning every single thing Voyager tells us tonight already happened yesterday. We are not watching it live. We are reading its diary, written in a place that should be empty, and the most recent entries describe something that should not exist, something with a rhythm, something with a pulse, something moving. To understand why that should frighten you a little, you need to understand what Voyager actually is at this point in its life, because it is not the machine it used to be. It launched with 11 scientific instruments and the ability to photograph entire worlds. One by one, as its 3 nuclear batteries decayed, NASA has been forced into a kind of slow, deliberate euthanasia, switching off cameras, switching off particle detectors, switching off cosmic ray sensors, sacrificing piece after piece of the spacecraft's nervous system just to keep its heart beating long enough to phone home. By 2026, only 2 instruments remain functional. A magnetometer, which reads the magnetic skeleton of space, and something called the plasma wave subsystem, an instrument built to listen to the faint electrical hum of charged particles drifting through the void. For most of Voyager's journey through interstellar space, that hum has been almost insultingly boring. A low, steady whisper of background noise, exactly what physics predicted it should be. Quiet, passive, empty. And then, sometime in the months leading into 2025, it stopped being boring. What the plasma wave subsystem began recording was not the gentle ambient static scientists had spent over a decade documenting. It was something with structure, a sharp, rhythmic pulsing, recurring at intervals, behaving less like background. Radiation and more like a heartbeat. Not random, not the gradual ripple of a solar shockwave fading outward from our own sun. Something with a pattern emerging from a stretch of space that every model in modern astrophysics had described with total confidence as empty and uneventful. Picture spending your entire career mapping a silent ocean, only for your hydrophone to suddenly start picking up something tapping back. That is roughly the position NASA's scientists found themselves in. And when this data reached researchers outside the agency, the reaction was not boredom. It was the particular focused unease of people who have just watched their model of reality fail a test it was supposed to pass easily. They checked for instrument error first, because that is what good scientists do. They ruled it out. The signal was not a glitch in a 50-year-old machine running on fumes. It was real, it was persistent, and worse, it appeared to be moving, tracking through the plasma rather than sitting fixed in one place, the signature of something traveling through space rather than simply existing in it. Here is the detail that should make the hair on your arms stand up, the detail most coverage of this story conveniently skips past. Voyager R1 has a twin. Voyager 2 launched the same year, now drifting through interstellar space in an entirely different direction, carrying its own working instruments, listening to its own slice of the void. If this pulse were some galaxy-wide phenomenon, some enormous ambient structure rippling through interstellar space at large, both probes, separated by billions of miles, should have picked up some echo of it. They did not. Voyager 2 recorded nothing. Total silence on its end, a clean rhythmic pulse on Voyager 1's end, and that single fact changes the entire shape of the mystery, because it means whatever is generating this signal is not everywhere. It is not a property of interstellar space itself. It is something localized, something specific, something that Voyager 1 happened to pass close enough to detect, like a single buoy in an ocean suddenly hearing footsteps on the seafloor that no other buoy for 1,000 miles can hear. Now, before this goes anywhere, it shouldn't. Let's be honest about what scientists actually think is happening, because the real explanations are strange enough without exaggeration. The leading theory is that Voyager has drifted into what researchers are calling a plasma shell, the fossilized remnant of an ancient supernova that detonated somewhere in this stretch of the galaxy tens of thousands of years ago. When a star dies that violently, it does not simply flash and vanish. It sends a shock wave roaring outward through space at devastating speed, compressing the thin interstellar plasma into dense, structured layers that can persist, slowly expanding, for an extraordinarily long time. If Voyager has entered one of these ancient shells' internal compression waves, rippling through that structure could, in theory, produce exactly the kind of rhythmic pulsing the plasma wave subsystem is recording. It is a grounded, physically reasonable explanation. It is also, quietly, one of the most astonishing things ever measured by a human-built object, because it would mean we have accidentally placed a working instrument inside the fossil of an exploded star and listened to it breathe. But there is a second explanation circulating in smaller, more careful conversations among researchers, one that gets far less airtime because it is genuinely uncomfortable to say out loud in a press release. Some scientists have proposed that what Voyager is detecting may belong to an entirely new, previously uncatalogued category of interstellar structure, something generated by a mechanism of gravity or electromagnetism we have not yet identified or named. Not aliens, not intent, just a gap, an honest admission that the universe may be producing patterns through processes our physics has not caught up to yet. That sounds modest until you sit with what it actually means, a 50-year-old machine running on the dying. Embers of a plutonium battery may have just stumbled onto evidence that there's a whole layer of physical reality humming away in the dark that no human theory currently has a name for. And this is exactly the kind of admission serious scientists are far more comfortable making in a quiet hallway after a conference than in front of a camera, because uncertainty does not photograph well, but uncertainty is precisely what's happening here. And if that were the entire story, it would already be one of the strangest things to come out of space science in a decade. But it is not the entire story, because while Voyager's plasma wave subsystem was recording its mysterious heartbeat, something else was screaming through our own solar system at a velocity that broke every record we had. On the 1st of July, 2025, a telescope in Chile, part of a planetary defense network built to spot incoming asteroids, caught something moving that did not belong. Its trajectory made no sense for anything born in our solar system. The math was unambiguous and immediate. This object had not formed around our sun. It had come from somewhere else entirely, hurled here from another star system, wandering the galaxy for who knows how long before, crossing paths with us. They named it 3I Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar visitor in human history, and what it did next stopped researchers cold. At discovery, it was already moving at roughly 137,000 miles per hour. By the time it reached its closest pass to the Sun in late October 2025, gravity had accelerated it to 153,000 miles per hour, the fastest speed ever recorded for any object inside our solar system. Not by a small margin, but by a staggering one. Its orbital path was so extreme, so violently curved, that the Sun's gravity barely registered as a footnote in its journey. This was not a visitor that wandered in gently. This was something arriving with the accumulated momentum of billions of years of travel through the galaxy, indifferent to our star, barely deflected by it, already leaving before we'd finished looking. Early analysis of its trajectory pointed somewhere extraordinary, suggesting that 3I Atlas likely originated from the galactic thick disk, an ancient region of the Milky Way populated by some of the oldest stars in existence, stars that formed when the universe itself was less than a third of its current age. If that analysis holds, this was not simply a comet, it was a sealed time capsule. An icy fragment carrying chemical fingerprints from a star system that may no longer even exist, drifting through the galaxy for billions of years before, by sheer astronomical coincidence, threading directly through our own cosmic backyard in the summer of 2025. Every major instrument humanity had pointed something at it. Hubble photographed it. The James Webb Space Telescope broke down its chemistry. NASA's Parker Solar Probe tracked it as it swung past the Sun. The European Space Agency redirected multiple interplanetary missions just to watch it pass. It behaved like a comet, an icy core wrapped in a glowing halo of gas and dust, a tail streaming behind it as ancient surface ice boiled away under sunlight it had not felt in billions of years. But its chemistry didn't quite match anything we'd cataloged before. Its dust polarized light in a way no solar system comet ever has. And scientists did something with it that tells you exactly how seriously they were taking the moment. They pointed radio telescopes directly at it, not just to study its chemistry, but to listen for the one thing that would change everything. A deliberate artificial signal. Because if any civilization anywhere in this galaxy has ever done what we did with Voyager, launched something outward and let it drift, then sooner or later, one of those drifting machines crosses paths with someone else's solar system. We checked, we listened, and we heard nothing. No structured transmission, no technological signature, just an ancient, silent rock, doing exactly what ancient rocks do. So no, 3I Atlas was not a spacecraft. The evidence is clear on that, and we should say so plainly, rather than letting suspicion linger where the data doesn't support it. but sit with the fact that we have now found 3 of these interstellar wanderers crossing our solar system inside a single decade. One in 2017, one in 2019, traveling through space rather than simply existing in it. Here is the detail that should make the hair on your arms stand up, the detail most coverage of this story conveniently skips past. Voyager R1 has a twin. Voyager 2 launched the same year, now drifting through interstellar space in an entirely different direction, carrying its own working instruments, listening to its own slice of the void. If this pulse were some galaxy-wide phenomenon, some enormous ambient structure rippling through interstellar space at large, both probes, separated by billions of miles, should have picked up some echo of it. They did not. Voyager 2 recorded nothing. Total silence on its end, a clean rhythmic pulse on Voyager 1's end, and that single fact changes the entire shape of the mystery, because it means whatever is generating this signal is not everywhere. It is not a property of interstellar space itself. It is something localized, something specific, something that Voyager 1 happened to pass close enough to detect, like a single buoy in an ocean suddenly hearing footsteps on the seafloor that no other buoy for 1,000 miles can hear. It behaved felt in billions of years, but its chemistry didn't quite match anything we'd cataloged before. Its dust polarized light in a way no... Voyager 2 launched the same through space rather than simply existing in it. Here is the detail that should make the hair on your arms stand up. Light in a way no solar system comet ever has. And scientists did something with it that tells you exactly how seriously they were taking the moment. They pointed radio telescopes directly at it, not just to study its chemistry, but to listen for the one thing that would change everything. A deliberate artificial signal. Because if any civilization anywhere in this galaxy has ever done what we did with Voyager, long one's end, and that single fact changes the entire shape of the mystery, because it means whatever is generating this signal is not everywhere. It is not a property of interstellar space itself. It is something localized, something specific, something that Voyager 1 happened to pass close enough to detect, like a single buoy in an ocean suddenly hearing footsteps on the seafloor that no other buoy for 1,000 miles can hear. It behaved like a comet, an icy core wrapped in a glowing halo of gas and dust, a tail streaming behind it as ancient surface ice boiled away under sunlight it had not felt in billions of years. But its chemistry didn't quite match anything we'd cataloged before. Its dust polarized light in a way no... Voyager 2 launched the same through space rather than simply existing in it. Here is the detail that should make the hair on your arms stand up, the detail most coverage of this story conveniently skips past. Voyager R1 has a twin. Voyager 2 launched the same, a third in 2025, moving faster than anything we had ever tracked. We used to assume these encounters were once-in-a-civilization events. We now know they are not. They are recurring. They are routine in cosmic terms, happening on a clock we simply hadn't been watching long enough to notice. Every single one of those objects is a message from another part of the galaxy, arriving without translation, without context, and without warning. And it is happening at almost exactly the same moment that our only instrument actually sitting inside interstellar space started detecting a structured, moving pulse it cannot explain. Now, scientists will tell you, correctly, that these two events are almost certainly unconnected. The scale of interstellar space makes coincidence and timing meaningless as proof of any physical link. That caution is appropriate, and you should trust it over sensational claims. But step back from the individual data points for a second and look at the shape of the whole picture, because that shape is the real story here, more than either event on its own. For the first 12 billion years the universe existed, no instrument built by any known civilization had ever physically sat inside the space between the stars and taken a direct reading. Voyager 1 did that for the very first time, only in 2012. Everything strange it has detected since, every unexpected pulse, every density anomaly, every reading that doesn't fit the textbook, is coming from the very first set of direct measurements humanity has ever collected from that environment. We are not refining old knowledge here. We are writing the very first page of it in real time with a dying machine that was never built for this job in the first place. We are like a species that just discovered the ocean exists and sent down its very first submarine, only to have that submarine immediately start picking up sounds nobody has a name for. And the timing of all this matters more than you might think, because Voyager is running out of time in the most literal sense possible. Its plutonium power core is decaying. Its instruments are being shut down one after another to stretch what little power remains, and somewhere in the next few years, possibly before the decade ends, Voyager 1 will go permanently silent. There is currently no fully funded mission designed to replace it, no second probe built specifically to keep listening once it stops. A formal interstellar probe mission has been proposed, studied, and discussed for years, but it failed to secure top priority in the most recent national survey. that sets America's space science agenda for the coming decade, which means when Voyager finally falls silent, our only working set of ears inside interstellar space goes with it, and the silence that follows could last for decades, not years. Every signal Voyager sends from this point forward might be the very last data we ever collect from that strange, pulsing region of space, the final page of a chapter we may not get to finish for a very long time. There's something almost unbearably human about what Voyager is still carrying with it out there. Bolted to its frame is the Golden Record, a gold-plated copper disc carrying the sounds of Earth, encoded specifically so that any intelligence advanced enough to find it could decode what it heard. The sound of wind, the sound of rain, the sound of human laughter. Greetings spoken in 55 languages, a diagram showing exactly where to find us, drawn by people who knew, with total certainty, that they would never live to hear a reply. It is a message thrown into an ocean so vast that the people who wrote it accepted, from the very beginning, that they were writing for someone they would never meet. Voyager is now moving on a path that will carry it outward forever, drifting past distant star systems over tens of thousands of years, a silent traveler representing a civilization that will have transformed beyond recognition long before it ever passes anywhere close enough to matter. And in what may be its final working years, it is telling us, quietly and without drama, that the space it has been crossing this entire time is not what we thought it was. Even our basic map of where our solar system ends has had to be redrawn because of what Voyager has shown us. We used to picture the Heliopause, the boundary separating our sun's influence from true interstellar space, as a clean, simple edge, almost like a wall. Voyager's readings have forced that picture apart. The boundary, it turns out, is thick, turbulent, and irregular, a churning transition zone where solar and interstellar magnetic fields tangle and collide in ways nobody predicted. Merav Ofer, a leading researcher in heliospheric physics at Boston University, summarized the situation about as bluntly as a scientist ever will, stating plainly that researchers now understand how little they actually understood about the heliosphere, and that it is far stranger and far more dynamic than anyone expected. That is not a junior voice speculating at the margins of a field. That is a senior researcher, decades into this work, openly admitting the foundational models were wrong, and that the dying machine, still transmitting from 15 billion miles away, is the one correcting them in real time. Meanwhile, 3I Atlas is already gone, slingshotting past Jupiter in the spring of 2026, the planet's gravity nudging its path one final time before it vanishes outward into the galaxy forever, never to return, carrying its ancient chemistry toward a destination none of us will ever see. But the data it left behind will keep researchers occupied for years, fragments of its chemical signatures still being unpacked from telescopes around the E. World, each one a small window into the conditions of a star system from the early universe. Here is the part of this story worth sitting with after the video ends. In a single decade, we went from never having directly sampled interstellar space to having years of real readings from inside it. We went from treating interstellar visitors as rare miracles to realizing they are a routine, recurring feature of living in this galaxy. We went from imagining the boundary of our solar system as a simple wall to discovering it is a churning, complicated frontier we are only beginning to understand. None of this requires aliens. None of this requires conspiracy. The natural explanations alone are staggering enough to rewrite what we thought we knew. A universe where ancient interstellar wanderers drift through our neighborhood on a recurring basis, where the empty space between stars pulses with structures we cannot yet name, is a universe that is far more active, far more alive in the physical sense than the quiet, static picture most of us grew up imagining. Voyager 1 was never supposed to still be transmitting. It was never supposed to still be listening, and it was certainly never supposed to find anything new this far into its life, running on the last fading watts of a power source designed half a century ago. And yet, 15 billion miles from the people who built it, it found something with a rhythm, something with structure, something that doesn't yet have a name, sending its signature home through a void we used to believe was silent. The real question left hanging over this entire story isn't whether there's an explanation. There almost certainly is. The real question is whether we will still have working ears out there to hear it by the time we find it, or whether the answer arrives only after the last transmission has already gone quiet, after the final watt of power has burned out, after humanity's only voice in interstellar space has nothing left to say. We are not standing at the edge of some dramatic, cinematic first contact. We are standing somewhere quieter and, in its own way, far more unsettling. The realization that everything we thought we knew about the dark, empty space between the stars was only the beginning of the story, not the end of it. Voyager is dying, but before it goes, it went somewhere no human-built object has ever gone, and it heard something nobody expected it to hear. The transmission is still coming, for now.